Hi guys, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kathy. I'm from the Tourism Industry Council of South Australia. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Kaurna people. I'd like to pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of First Nations people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of South Australia. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands where you all join us on from today, and the First Nations people participating in this webinar. Our In Conversation series are short webinars as part of our business development program to provide our tourism operators across the state with insights and advice that can help your business in planning and operations. We'll be asking a number of questions as I chat to Kate from TouchStay today, and we really encourage these sessions to be as interactive as possible. There'll be plenty of time to ask questions at the end. Also, I'd like to encourage you to use the chat function and pop your questions up as they come to your mind, and I'll endeavour to weave through them as we go through the session today. But like I said, we've got plenty of time to have a chat at the end. In order for this just to run really seamlessly, I'd just ask if everybody could keep their microphone on mute. And just for your information, today's session is recorded and will be distributed to all our guests afterwards. Right, that's all the housekeeping, guys. So today, for our In Conversation with TouchStay, I'm joined by Kate Hitchcomb-Gillies, Chief Marketing Officer at TouchStay. And I'd also like to acknowledge Hazel Parker, the Australian Ambassador and Customer Support Representative, both who've been with TouchStay for nearly 4 years now. First of all, a quick welcome to yourself, Kate.
Hello, and thank you, Kathy, and hello to everybody who's here. I hope you enjoy this session. Yeah, I've been with TouchStay since November 2020, so from the height of slightly crazier times to the relative calm of 2024. I'm Chief Marketing Officer, and that means that I work with our very small and super friendly team to try and spread the good word of TouchStay around the world. And I'm very happy to say that we've got quite a strong base in Australia already, hence Hazel's role here as a brand ambassador. And Hazel has always been one of our staunch supporters and a long-time user of the product, well before she became involved in being part of the team. So she is the font of all knowledge when it comes to the product and its ins and outs, if anybody has any particular or specific questions.
Fabulous. Thanks, Kate. And hello, Hazel. Say a quick hi for everybody. So we're really lucky to have Kate joining us from New Zealand and Hazel from the wonderful McLaren Vale here in South Australia today. So as we start this In Conversation, I think I really want to acknowledge that, you know, Kate's joining us from New Zealand with a very strong British accent. Hazel is based down in McLaren Vale, and it really, to me, reflects that the breadth of the TouchStay platform is not bound by any traditional countries or boundaries. Australia is their third largest customer base, and we follow the UK and then the US in the breadth of how TouchStay as a platform is being used. And we're going to touch on that from a tourism perspective, but give you some insights from a business operations perspective as well today. So in just starting this, Kate, for everybody listening today, actually, I'm going to quickly deviate. Sorry, guys. Anybody can give a raise of a hand or the thumbs up signal. Is anybody using TouchStay currently on the call today? just pop your, do an emoji reaction for us. Thanks, Monique. Fabulous. So as we're getting a bit of a temperature check there from people, Kate, what inspired the creation of Touch Stay, and how does Touch Stay differ? Because obviously there are similar applications out there in the marketplace. I'd love to share that story with the audience.
Well, Touch Stay has been around a long time, and that's probably one of its unique selling points, or one of its standout points. So Andy and Joe founded Touch Stay back in 2014, partly in frustration at having one too many terrible guest experiences, whether that was rocking up at an Airbnb or any kind of accommodation, really. They were both once upon a time serial travelers, and yeah, it got to a point where they were pretty fed up of having to make a call to ask how to get in, to find out where the key was, to figure out what the Wi-Fi password was, where the nearest store was. So it comes from a place of frustration, and I think they quite often say that the best inventions do. They fill the gap that's there. So it's the 10th year of Touch Stay being in existence. They didn't take it on full time until about 2018. And that's when the team began to grow. And it was really COVID that caused an explosion in the business of sorts. It was going quite strong by that point. They were both working full time, but COVID really saw that need for operators to move from paper information to digital information from a hygiene perspective. Now, based on what it was founded on, you can imagine that it has grown in the holiday rental space. That's about 90% of the business today is based in the holiday rental sector, and primarily in the countries that you've stated. Although we are we do have guides in up to 30 countries around the world. So that doesn't necessarily mean that our customers are in those 30 countries, but the places or the events or the things that they are trying to communicate about are. And as a remote first team and a global team, that's really quite a success story that we're really proud of. And from an accommodation perspective, we saw in 2023 that Touch Stay guidebooks were put into the hands of more than 3 million guests. So
incredible.
The uptake as well as the feedback is phenomenal. And as I was saying to you just before the call started, there's a real human element to the company's values. And those, for anybody who has met or has the pleasure of meeting Andy along the way, will appreciate that they resonate from him significantly. He's very much a people person, and he's it's very important to him that despite being a digital product and being a remote business, that we're a very human business, and we're seen to be helping, not selling. And those really are the core company values. A product that was designed to make guests' lives easier and better, and their experiences better, and a product that ultimately helps operators become more efficient, productive, and profitable. Really are the joint goals of the business. And software aside, what makes us stand out versus the competition, alongside the fact that we are primarily a guidebook software provider. We're not trying to be a PMS. We're not trying to be a unified inbox. We're very much focused on the communication side of operations.
Absolutely. And I think, circling back to your values there as well, Kate, having Hazel on the ground here in Australia, and particularly South Australia, definitely cements that perspective, that value of human, and making sure you're as human as possible. And I'm sure both Sage at Streaky Bay and Bellevue Bread and Breakfast, who mentioned on the call today, hi guys, that you're using the application can be sentiment, share that sentiment as well. So I'm really keen to just dive a little bit deeper in terms of, you've mentioned it's a guidebook. What are the key, and we've got some accommodation operators, on the line using it. pick a say, use it ourselves, and we're going to show you guys as we go through the call, through this call today, some different applications of how it's being used. But what are the key capabilities and features that TouchStay that businesses can really leverage to improve their operations, particularly from that communications perspective?
Yeah. So at a really base level, TouchStay is there to replace printed information or to provide additional information beyond the printed information. So if you take that old school view that you stay in a holiday rental and you rock up and there's a folder on the shelf and it was created once, might have been updated a couple of times, but it probably got sticky fingers on it, coffee marks on it. Maybe there's a page missing or loose, might be full of leaflets. That's what it's designed to replace. And it's designed to replace it both from a physical to digital thing, but also to put it in the hands of people, whether they're your guests, your event attendees, or your employees, to put it in their hands from the moment they need it. So from the moment the conversation starts. And that's the real difference in terms of its power for communication. The sooner you
to clarify that, Kate, you mean from the moment they book, not necessarily,
yeah.
A traditional guidebook, like you said, or a compendium in a hotel. A guest doesn't get to have an interaction with that piece of collateral and the communications there until they arrive. So, you're sort of saying that this can start from the moment they make a booking, potentially.
Absolutely. And therefore it helps reduce guest questions and it helps guests plan their best stay because they've got everything they need up front. They don't have to ask you for your recommendations because they're in the guidebook. They don't have to Google the best restaurants in your location because it's in the guidebook. And for those who have concerns about sharing too much information up front or sharing sensitive information up front, there is functionality within the platform to hide information until a set time. So we have something called lead time. So if you don't want to share your exact address or you don't want to share your Wi-Fi code until a day or two before arrival, you can set it so that you don't have to.
Yeah, so there's some real, obviously digital platforms to communicate are really beneficial, but there's some really great ways that you can have an element to control some of the capabilities. Sorry, you can see my hands going there, guys. I can't talk without my hands moving. I have to sit on them. To control an element of the information if you want that released on a staggered approach rather than everything released, particularly if you've got someone booking, we'll use our accommodation as an example, 3 months out.
Yeah, precisely.
You might want to stagger your approach on a communication and what they have access to. And
related to that, we have a messaging tool as part of the subscription. So we call it Memo, and it enables you to schedule emails and or text messages to stagger out communications from the moment they book up to arrival, mid-stay and beyond, so that you're able to be in control of what you communicate and when, so you can seed information to guests. I'm a marketeer, so a rule of thumb for me is to remind and repeat. Don't just say something once because people are bound to forget it, particularly in today's day and age where there's just so much noise. So this sort of plays on that. By all means, send the guidebook when they book, but don't be afraid to find an excuse to send it again 3, 4, 5 times between them booking and arriving. And we did a study last year where we surveyed 2,000 vacation rental guests. So it was a US study, and we surveyed 2,024 US vacation rental guests and asked them various questions about how much information they were receiving, they were used to receiving, they would like. And the majority of people came back saying that the sweet spot of communication for them was between 3 and 5 times. And that meant that from an operational perspective, that means you can go, hey, here's my guidebook. It's got everything you need. Don't ask me any questions unless you really need to. It means you can prompt them again and say, it's a month out before your stay. These are the restaurants nearby that you have to book if you want a chance of getting a table. You could send another one that says, hey, if you haven't thought about doing these activities while you're here, you must, and these are our recommended providers. Then you can send your pre-arrival reminder, here's the directions and here's where you'll find the key, or here's the lock code. And then we introduced a feature last year called First Impressions. And it's optional to add into your guidebook, but it's a little survey that says, hey, how's it going? And you can send a text or an email after they've arrived, point them directly to that section of your guidebook. So we call those deep links. So you're not always pointing people to the guidebook homepage. You can point them to specific sections within it. And then they fill out this little survey that gives you based on their first impression upon arrival, they give you a rating of 1 to 5. They can leave their information, so their name, their contact details, and if they want to, they can leave a comment. If you want to gather that data for marketing purposes, you can also include your privacy policy, so you're covered from a data protection perspective. And then imagine what you could do with that information if you are going to use it for marketing purposes. So it's continuing this cycle of communication with guests in this example. So you can build either a direct relationship with them or just an ongoing relationship to work your way towards that chances of a 5-star review on this occasion, or their recommendations to friends or repeat bookings, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I love this element of, when we look at how digital platforms are beneficial, I like it from a comms perspective as you're starting that guest experience from the moment they are booking. And particularly, there is always a place for third-party intermediaries, different, like your booking.coms and the Expedias of the world there. But you're doing a direct communication with your guests, no matter from when the time they've booked, no matter what platform they've booked from, rather than that being through that channel that they have booked. So I think that's really great to unpack that. A benefit from an ops perspective is obviously, you have all this information preloaded up. So it's actually, there's some really good operational savings in time and capabilities when we all know time and people, heads in businesses challenge, but it's not without compromise on that guest experience.
Yeah, and to put that into
I'm really keen. Oh, sorry, there you go, Kate.
I was just going to put that into some other context, because when we were doing that research study last year, we looked at other data that was out there, and booking.com had done a survey around travel lead time. And when you think about how long people invest or take to research their holiday or take the time to book, and if it's just a couple, maybe that doesn't take too long, but if you're bringing in other family members or friends, that time ekes out quite significantly. But it was looking, I can't remember the actual stat off the top of my head, but it was something like 6 to 9 months was the average lead time on planning a holiday. So that's how far out people were thinking about it, doing the research, planning, and then you've got the commitment of the significant disposable income on this experience. And then they book. Now, if you've committed all of that time and money, and then you book, and then you hear nothing, how disappointing is that? So, I'm really, really excited.
Absolutely.
Oh, these people don't care. I've just paid them all my money, and I'll hear nothing. It's so common to not hear anything between booking and arrival or just before arrival. And yet there's this time frame where you can continue the storytelling, you can continue the brand reinforcement, you can build rapport with your guests. And it's partly about being human, like we were talking about before. We live in a digital world, in a very faceless world, but the moment you choose to proactively start communicating, you're also making it more human and more personable, and people respond better to that than they do to the faceless organizations of the OTAs and so on and so forth. So there's
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
much potential for positioning yourself as a business in a positive way by communicating more.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, Kate. And particularly, our industry, the industry is providing the best customer service, the best guest experiences. And this is removing a barrier there that we can absolutely start doing it from the moment that is booking. And to your point, not waiting. We get so excited in the dreaming phase of our holidays and then you book. We can start having an impact on that guest experience. And continue to build positive relationships with guests before they come and participate in our experience or stay at our accommodation, or various whatever they're choosing to do. So I can see it being really valuable from that sense. Kate, talk to me about internally from a business operations perspective. A lot of this is set up so it can run really automatically. Therefore, it isn't requiring the capacity of manpower and hours and labour, particularly when that is an area that is stretched, when majority of our industry are SME business operators.
Yeah, so there's obviously sort of that initial setup phase, and that can be as short or as long as you want it to be. Now, the flexibility of the platform means that there is no such thing as a perfect guidebook, and there is no such thing as a done and dusted guidebook. The joy of it is that every time a guest asks you a question, if that answer isn't already in your guidebook, you can go and put it in your guidebook so that future guests don't have to ask you that question. And that's not a bad thing, because we can't think about all the things all the time. I see it as a positive thing, because everybody is different and wants to experience things differently, whether in your place or in your location. To prove that point, Andy, our CEO, has done a 14-minute video to show you how to get a basic guidebook up and live in that time. Now, obviously, he's very familiar with the platform, so he can move around it speedily. But his point is that if you just want to put basic information in the hands of guests so they stop asking you what the Wi-Fi code is, where the parking is, and what the address is, you can do that in as little as 14 minutes. And then when you do have time to add in more than 5 recommendations for restaurants or activities or farm shops or whatever, you can do that at any point in the future. There's so many things you can add to your guidebook now to make it a more experiential thing for guests, and to get them to make it a stickier thing for guests. And they're things that you can't necessarily add to your website, or they're things that guests wouldn't expect to find on your website and therefore wouldn't go looking back at your website or your listing after the booking. And those are, you can embed Spotify playlists, you can embed Jot forms, and Jot form is a brilliant platform for promoting and managing and selling upsells, so packages and add-ons. So you can embed all of those in your guidebook now, so that you can send a guest a link to your packages part of your guidebook, and right there and then they can see what's available and they can purchase it from within the guidebook. You can embed 3D virtual tours, you can embed videos.
Oh, fabulous. So there's that great e-commerce tool.
Exactly.
Oh, sorry,
So,
there's a bit of a time delay there between you and I, Kate.
that's all right. But the point is that the time is yours to manage. You start with a template, so there is some templated content in there to make it really easy for you. That is editable, or you can delete it and copy and paste it in from your existing PDF document, or however you're currently serving up guest information. And then you can enhance step by step. So every time a new restaurant opens, you can put it in your guidebook. If one closes, you can delete it really quickly. And think of it as an evolving brand asset.
Absolutely. Work in progress constantly.
Yeah.
And that there is many great benefits for that, because it allows you to continue to tailor your comms, and even looking at some a conversation that's happening here in the chat between Hazel and our wonderful operators at Bellevue Bed and Breakfast who use the guidebook. You know, it's a great opportunity to talk around to your guests directly if you're impacted by seasonality, bushfire season, or, you know, if you're operating in a really far destination, and it's self-catering and they need to make sure they have an element of provisions that they're not going to get before they get to the town, you know, the town where you're located. You know, there's some great capabilities there to really use it as that central piece of tool for communication, particularly using the memo function and using it to send emails and SMS out. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how, Kate, pick your brain a little bit more about sustainability and accessibility. These are two key pieces that we are constantly educating the industry on. Our industry are doing remarkable efforts in adopting, but, you know, there's a really big comms element around sustainability and accessibility. How is touch stay being used to, you know, for those key areas?
So sustainability is very much at the heart of what we do and what we enable. We are helping operators remove paper and printing from their worlds and replacing it with digital alternatives. We're very conscious that digital doesn't mean it doesn't have an environmental impact. So all of our servers are hosted on green energy or use green power. So we have delved into that research. And as an organisation, we are part of Ecology's climate positive workforce. So we offset our team's carbon footprint by contributing to Ecology, which is a tree planting organisation that was recommended to us by one of our users, Bob Garner. Now, if you don't know who Bob Garner is, he is a Brit who runs a beautiful B&B come vacation rental in Le Marche in Italy. And he is perhaps the industry's greatest advocate of sustainability and climate-friendly practices. And he's the guy behind Enviro Rental, which is one of the industry's sort of leaders in terms of education on this front. And it was a conversation with Bob a few years ago now, where he said, "What are you guys doing? You know, I'm shouting loudly about how to be an environmentally friendly operator. I want to ensure that the tools I'm using match my values and my efforts." And so with Bob's help, we got involved with Ecology. We created a topic for our guidebooks called Making a Difference. And we encourage our users to add that to their guidebooks to share their own sustainability efforts or their own social responsibility efforts. There are some really good examples of users who are doing that now, where they talk about the products that are available in their accommodation, the products they use to clean and maintain their accommodation, any causes that they contribute to, using either a sort of dollar per night type basis, or a portion of their profits goes to a climate positive charity or cause. And then Tyann, who's in our team, she donates a US dollar a night to a local women's refuge. So it's, for us, sustainability isn't just about the environmental piece, it's about sustainability environmentally, operationally and profitably, so that we're all doing as much good as we possibly can. And we're really trying with the Making a Difference section to enable our users to tell their own story and spread the word with their guests.
I love that, Kate. Thanks so much for sharing that story, particularly because for me, that really comes down to your values and that value of being human as possible. And the particular point around you guys are learning from each other. You know, as a community, your community of users and customers, and using Bob, you know, pushing back and saying to you guys, yeah, it's a two-way conversation, and all trying to work holistically. I think that's really exciting on that side of things. You know, from a TIC SA perspective, we've been really proud to work with TouchStay to deliver both our conference and South Australian Tourism Awards. We now use the platform for our digital program, which is really exciting. Again, that is about us continuing to, you know, we're educating you guys, our industry, around sustainability, and it's making sure we take a leading front on that, and also demonstrating the other ways of which you can use this platform in your business as well. And going on that, Kate, did you want to share some of those visually, and perhaps talk us through other examples of how businesses are using the platform?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So we've talked about this mainly from a accommodation perspective so far, and I imagine that most of the people who are joining us today are also in that sort of accommodation or tourism world. So it's the natural fit for TouchStay. Hopefully you can now all see the South Australian Tourism Awards Gala Dinner Guidebook.
Yes, we can, Kate. Thank you.
Brilliant. So this is an example of where, you know, Hazel, in conversation with you, perhaps more so than me, has shown you the light as far as TouchStay is concerned, and how to use it as a guide for events. And for anybody joining us today who hasn't seen this before or wasn't at the event, it's a great way to demonstrate the flexibility of the platform. So what we're all seeing here are categories, and TouchStay's platform and how you would use it is broken down by category, subcategory, topic. That's the organization or the organizational layers of how you input content, and then how it displays to your customer or user. And you can move it around, you can change everything. So all those icons that you see there, all those titles, they're all editable. Click on one of them, and that's where you see the subcategories. Click on a subcategory and you see the topics. And this is the format, the organizational format I was talking about. I'm going to click on this one because not so much, well, it does two things. It shows you that you can both give every topic an image, but you can also embed additional images further down the topic. And it leads me to the idea of a QR code. So every guidebook has a QR code, and every topic within the guidebook can also have its own QR code. So that becomes really powerful if you want to put a QR code on your washing machine or your coffee machine or your smart TV or your heating controls, and then your guests can scan it there and then and be taken straight to the instructions for working it. So QR codes are very much a part of the TouchStay functionality. I'm going to show you now Juggle House Experiences, so a South Australia business, and Kelly has done a wonderful job with this guidebook. It's as beautiful and energetic as her business name suggests, and she is using it to share with her customers more information about the tours that she provides. So here you see those categories. They're completely different to what we were just showing you in the Gala Awards guide. And they are quite close to the template that you would start with. So the welcome template, the before you leave home section, the local area guide section, Quite often you'll find a safety info and rules section, and then the so long farewell in the book again. This one up here, weather and tour changes, is one of my favorites. Let me just check she's got the weather widget in here. She has. So you can add a weather widget, as we call it, to your guidebook, and it's based on the location that you set for your guidebook, and it pulls in real live weather information from AccuWeather. We also do the same for tides. So if you're on the coast, then you can add weather and tide information to your guidebook once and never think about it ever again. So guests love that. They love not having to Google today's weather or tides. These are lovely things to have. It's going back to that piece around communication and, not just forgetting that they've booked and forgetting them. Similarly, not just forgetting that they've stayed and gone, finding ways to keep in touch with them, promoting your social media channels, inviting them to join your mailing list. And there's 2 ways to do this. If you use a third-party email provider, you can just link to your sign-up form, or TouchStay now has an email capture topic that you can add to your guidebook. They fill in a form, you include a link to your privacy policy, and then you can download all that data from your TouchStay account as and when you want to update it. This is a very simple way to present upsells. You're just linking out to another site, but as I was saying before, you can also include a jot form in your guidebook. Everything you put in your local area guide pulls in from Google Places. So TouchStay has an integration with Google Places. It's a 30-second job, perhaps less, to add a Google Place. You literally start typing man and waterfalls in this example, and it will populate it with the information from the business's Google My Business listing. And Kelly hasn't done this, but what you can do is add a sentence or 2 about why you recommend those locations, just to give a bit of personal experience. And then all of those Google Places are listed on the map section too. When you click on them, you can get directions. So perfect for being on the move. No need to take any pieces of paper with you. It's all on your phone. Now,
thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that one particularly. Oh, and Red Door. I think it's really great. And I'll let you continue on with this, Kate, because it's just showing the use of the application outside of being an accommodation operator as well, with Kelly being a tour and experiences operator. And I'll let you quickly continue on with Red Door as well. So it really just starts to highlight to you all the breadth of application this product can have and be of benefit to your business in a various ranges of application.
Yes, and I will reinforce that. So Red Door Tours is a similar sort of tour-based business, and this is how personalized you can make it. There's a photo here of your organizer, but that could be a welcome video, and we have operators who do put hello, I'm Kate, I can't wait to welcome you to whatever. This is another South Australia business where they have used the product to create a housekeeping guide. So this is becoming an increasingly common use, whereby whether you have a single person cleaner or you use a cleaning company, you can provide guidance on how you want the property prepared for the next set of guests. In the US, they call it standard property appearance. So it can contain, for me, I use this for my own cleaners, and I used TouchStay's tag system to do it, which means that you copy across lots of my information from my guest guidebook into my cleaning guidebook just by using a tag. So there's no manual work or repetition of work for me, but it includes all the pictures so that the cleaning company can see what the rooms are meant to look like, how I want them presented for each new set of guests. And then it includes all the cleaning instructions. Instead of how to work the coffee machine, it includes a video on how to clean the coffee machine. So there are lots of applications for making use of it for other members of your team.
That's great.
This,
I really love that from a operations perspective as well. That's really exciting.
yes, and this one leads into that conversation too. So whilst we have been born out of the accommodation industry, and we now have, you know, accommodation operators creating guest guidebooks, cleaning guidebooks. We have destination marketing organizations creating destination guidebooks. We also have people creating event guidebooks. So that's a bit like your gala dinner guidebook. But we've also found that people have started adapting TouchStay to more of their needs. And so we are now starting to play a little bit more into their hands. So coming soon is an SOP template. Now, this world is very familiar to me because I've been working on it a lot recently, but an SOP, for those who are not so familiar with it, is a standard operating procedure. Now, it could be that is a cleaning guide. You know, how you want your house cleaned and prepared and presented is a standard operating procedure. But the notion of a standard operating procedure is that it could apply to anything from how you onboard employees, to how you organise and run an event, to how you do a rota for a restaurant or run a service in a cafe. There are so many applications of it. And so this is an example of TouchStay as an SOP. And you'll see that I want to see my categories and I can't. Let me see if I can get to my categories. Let me go into the get started button. Here we go. It's not going to play ball with me, is it? It's not. Okay, well, I'm going to move on from that one if it's not going to play and show you some other South Australia examples. So this is the University of South Australia. Hazel, I don't know if you want to talk through this guidebook because you're a bit more familiar with it than I am. I can steer if you want to talk about it.
Sure. So basically, the University of SA, the health department, send out students on rural placements, and they've got a number of guidebooks, talking about what the placement's all about, how they can, what help they might need, advice on emergency requirements, information about the local area as well. And then once they've got their actual placement organised, then they get a second guidebook, which it covers their accommodation that they're staying at while they're there, and their work processes while they're there. And they've been playing around with this now for the last year and a half, and they've actually contacted me last week to say they're now looking at doing cleaning guides for all their accommodation that they send the students out to. So I think it's a really cool use of the product. And I think somebody from UniSA attended one of the TICSA conferences and realised the power of the product and jumped in, and they did a couple of free trials with us. And then they just realised that they could create all this fantastic information. Everything for their students is basically in one place. They don't have multiple emails. They don't have to log into sections of the network. It's all, everything's in there for them.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thanks for sharing that, Hazel. And that probably leads me to my next piece about, because there is such a wide breadth of application for the product, really it's limited by your imagination. And we understand that the benefits, the impact, benefits businesses from a comms perspective, but also from your own business capabilities perspective, because it's going to help free up resources. But how, obviously there's going to be challenges that, you're going to be faced with working with businesses in moving operations to a digital platform, and particularly because there's such a wide breadth of application of this platform? How do you work with businesses to overcome that? And I think we've got an example here with Deanne from Boats and Beds, you know, with some specific information on our chat there, but really keen to learn about that approach you take with businesses in terms of leaning into your values about continuing to be human, in helping them overcome challenges in moving to digital platforms. And second to that is ensuring they're maximizing the use of the capability, the platform as well.
So a common question or a common pushback, and I think particularly in the accommodation sector, is that my guests are all over 65, they won't read it. Okay, and that's a fair pushback. So the guidebooks are downloadable as a PDF and they're printable. Now, it's nowhere near as good an experience as the digital piece. It's not intuitive, it's not interactive, it's not as glossy and shiny. It won't make you look as good, but it's a functionality that exists if you need it. And there is no harm in having both print and digital available. So we're very conscious of that. And for those businesses that are larger, so as a product, we're a very low price point entry. So to have one guidebook, Hazel, I might need you to give me the Aussie dollars amount, but it's $99 for a year for one guidebook.
I think that comes in about 142.
Okay.
Australian dollars.
And the moment you add a second guidebook, the second guidebook is half price. So the discounting kicks in very quickly and it scales down from there as you go to volume. And when you're a larger business and you're coming to Touch Day saying, okay, love the product, love the idea, I can see the benefits in the long term. How do I overcome this initial hurdle of setup and content adding and, you know, making use of all the shiny tools and features that I like? When you've got, when you're coming to us and saying, actually, I'm going to have at least 10 or 11 guidebooks, or maybe you'll come to us and say, I need 350 guidebooks. That's when the team kicks in, because behind the scenes, both in terms of the people behind the platform and the technology behind the platform, both have been built or organized to help those who are going to use Touch Day at scale. So for larger customers, there is training for them and their team. There is support with onboarding and getting content into guidebooks. And we help as much as we can because that's the kind of organization we are. And although we've built a product that is designed for self-service and we are constantly improving it based on feedback or user requests to make it as easy as possible to use, we will help wherever we can. In terms of that second question and encouraging people to make use of all these new features, sometimes I feel like I'm on a hamster wheel because the development team, well, we've done this and we've done this and we've done this. Oh, and we're going to do this. And by the way, did we tell you we've done this too? And I either can't keep up or I can't move fast enough to get word out that these new features and functionalities exist. But I can assure you that there are many, and I can also confirm that things get missed, which goes back to the remind and repeat thing I was talking about earlier. I also think that I'm stuck record sometimes because I'm like, I've talked about the fact we're now integrated with Airbnb at least 4 times this week, and still this person I spoke to didn't realize it. Or, you know, I think I've spoken about or emailed or put out on social media that we have Jotform embeds and you can now do upsells in our guidebooks endlessly. And yet endlessly isn't enough, because we've got 7,000 or so customers around the world who need to be told multiple times in multiple places. So we run webinars, we send fortnightly newsletters, we have a very in-depth knowledge base full of help articles, and we're very active on social media. So there are many places that you can find our information, in addition to poking us and the team and saying, how do I do this? Or what do you recommend I add next to my guidebook? And I think we're fairly good, but also always trying to be better at communicating what we offer and what the capabilities of the product are, because we recognize that we're not perfect either.
Yeah, I love that, Kate. And I think, Hazel's role as Australian ambassador and customer support sort of comes in there as a second, as another demonstration of your values and how you are there to help overcome challenges and support businesses as well. Thanks, Hazel. Thank you, Deanne, first of all. Deanne from Boats and Beds, on the question there around Res Online, and Hazel has swung in there and answered that lovely again. Anne-Marie, yes, we're actually in the process of building Touch Stay for our conference coming up in June. So we've been using Touch Stay for a couple of years now for both our two key flagship events, being our conference, the State Tourism Conference every year, and as well the SA Gala, SA Tourism Awards Gala dinner. We've had an overwhelming feedback on the positive feedback to us, and then lastly, it helps us uphold our values around sustainability as well. I love the examples you've shared, Kate. What's on the horizon for Touch Day? You mentioned, you're always seeking feedback and ways to continue to improve the service or improve the platform, and continuing to expand the breadth of how it's being used. What's in the future?
Well, with reference to some of those alternative example guides I've shown you, and I will just reference this cyclone guide. It's part of the collection of guides that the Hilton in Cairns has. They use Touch Stay to create leaders guides, team guides, crew guides, and then this cyclone guide. We are, forever learning from our users, and so the SOP guidebook that I tried to show you, is one of our work in progress pieces. So there will soon be an SOP template available to choose when people sign up. And there'll also be one for employee onboarding, and there'll also be a blank template. Now, the blank template will either fill you with joy or fill you with fear. It will guide you as much as presenting you with the organizational format of Touch Stay. So it will give you a category, a subcategory, and a topic, so you can understand how the organization works. But it's come from a place of the true flexibility of the platform and the demand from new users to say, I want to create this, but none of your templates currently work for me. Now, all of those templates are editable, as I've said, but some people just want to start from scratch, and we're really excited to see what people create as a result of that. Other things in the pipeline are we're in conversation with Home Hero about an integration. So that's one of the Australian PMSs for those who are in the accommodation sector. And we are looking to smooth out our account system and that is the way that you organise your account. So at the moment, if you start a Touch Stay account, you have to choose a template, and all your guidebooks that you create follow that template. we will hopefully in the next month or two release the ability to add multiple template types within your account, so that you could add what we call an STR template, so a holiday rental template, and you could add a cleaning guide template, all within the same account, all under the same billing window. So that is also a work in progress. And again, something like that comes from user feedback and actual usage of the platform, and we learn as we go.
Sorry, I was on mute there. That's fabulous. Kate, I'm really conscious of time here and really have found this session. And I've got a page full of notes right in front of me, because as much as we're using this information, to educate our wonderful community online, we're also continuing learning things as well, which is super exciting. Just as we finish off today, and allow a couple of minutes for some questions, if anybody has got any further questions, I'd pop them up through the meeting chat now. What are the 3 top tips as we round out today on how TouchStay can really help the broad range of operators in their business?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit then. Could I ask you to repeat that question?
Oh, apologies. Yeah, I was just asking, what are your top 3 takeaways you want to give our audience today on how TouchStay can really help them in their tourism business?
Primarily, TouchStay is a huge time saver, and we hear this every single day from users who are new to us and users who have been with us for a while. The other piece of feedback we get quite often is, and I will say this in quote marks, because otherwise it sounds like we're being big-headed, and it's, you make us look good. Because when people, do invest in their guidebooks and they put videos in them, they put beautiful imagery in them, they make use of the features and they add Spotify playlists or they enable upsells, it's making the guests' lives easier, or the event attendee experience easier and more fluid. So in the words of our users, it really does help them look good and present their business in the best possible light. And I think the third one is really that there's always something new to try or something new to include. And for those people who are always looking to add layers to their guest experience, either because they don't want to appear to be stale, or because they've got some newfangled idea that they want to try, there's probably something in the guidebook that will enable them to surface it. And if not, it's possibly coming soon.
Thanks, Kate. I really appreciate that. Does anybody else want to take this opportunity? I really respect that Hazel has been working tirelessly in the background there on the chat function, answering some questions. But did anybody else want to take the opportunity to ask any questions before we wrap up today's session? Just encourage you to put them in the chat function now. And then, I really valued your time, Kate, as well as yours, Hazel. As we wrap up today's session, a couple of notes I've taken is we'll make sure, particularly from the chat function, we will make sure in the email out to all our people registered to this session, we'll pop a link to the Knowledge Hub, so you can actually see, that Knowledge Hub for a source of information. Hazel's information will be there as our customer, as the Australian ambassador and customer support there as well. And then for all your TKSA members who are on the call and interested in experiencing this product and how it can add value to your guest experience, help streamline some operations as well for you, all our TKSA members get a special offer from TouchStay. So that will be communicated in the email afterwards. Hazel is more than happy to be available to answer any questions and queries you might have. Jody, I can see your message up there. I'm totally new. Is there a demo video I can view to set up accommodation? Yeah, I can see some nodding of heads, and I believe I can see Hazel quickly typing away as well. Perfect. That's great. Thanks, Hazel. So we'll just make sure we include some links there to those initial demo videos as well, to help showcase how you can set that up for your tourism business, being accommodation, experiences, visitor information services. The breadth is as wide as and far. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate Kate and Hazel's time and expertise on today's call. I appreciate our community for taking time out of your busy day in joining us in today's session. Like we said, it's being recorded as a future resource for you, and we'll send out an email with a bank of information to help you following today's session. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody.